All right, here's part 2 of the 45, 45, 90 triangles. In part 1, we went over, and I'll re-go over this question right here. But we went over how we solve for lengths of a triangle when given a leg length. So remember, the legs of a triangle are the shorter sides. Okay, so the legs of this triangle are the ones highlighted in green. And then the hypotenuse is the larger side, the longer side. And that one's highlighted in blue. Okay, and we also learned that when angles are congruent, their opposite sides are also congruent to each other. So meaning that these legs of a 45, 45, 90 triangle are going to always be congruent to each other. Okay? Okay, so with that being said, we went ahead and just labeled these X. Okay? And then we learned that when we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the value of the hypotenuse, the longer side, is whatever the legs are times the square root of 2. So essentially, it's a leg times the square root of 2. Just take one of the legs, okay? So in this case right here, it says the leg equals, or X equals, 14. Well, in order to find, backtrack, which makes BC our other leg, also 14. Okay? All right, so in order to actually find the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse is the leg multiplied by the square root of 2. Well, the legs of this triangle have a value of 14. Therefore, the hypotenuse is 14 times the square root of 2. So when given legs or leg length, and we want to find the hypotenuse, we want to just multiply leg by the square root of 2. Okay? So in example 3 right here, we're going to take it a step further, and this is going to give us, so when we're given a value for the hypotenuse. Okay, so notice in this question, it gives us the value of the hypotenuse. Well, we can look at it as steps here. We're going to label our constants, meaning we're going to label x, and x times the square root of 2. Okay, x going on the legs as always, because those are congruent to each other. And then the label of x times the square root of 2 will always go on the hypotenuse in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, so our step 2 is to write an expression. Meaning, figure out what our 12 is equal to. Well, because our x times the square root of 2 and 12 are on the same segment, they're on the same hypotenuse, that means, and this is the expression I'm talking about, that means that x times the square root of 2 equals 12. Okay? So when we go back and see what it's looking for, it wants AB and it wants BC, which are our leg values, right? Well, our leg values are labeled with the variable of x, meaning I need x by itself. So now it's just algebra at this point. We just need to look at this expression and get x by itself. So a lot of y'all, when you see the railroad tracks, we know exactly what we're supposed to do. Okay, so that's why I'm writing them. All right. So our step 3, which I'm going to write it in here very small, is solve for x. Okay? Well, this expression states x times the square root of 2 equals 12. Okay? So we need to figure out how to undo the multiplication of the square root of 2. Well, the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by the square root of 2. It simplifies down to 1, or cancels out, as you would say, on the left-hand side, which is what we want because it gets x by itself. And it equals 12 times, or divided by the square root of 2. Now, we should be rationalizing this fraction, but we're not going to take it that step further. Coach C is going to take it as is right here, just like that. Okay, so your answer to the legs will always be the same because they're legs, and the legs of the triangle in this scenario are always going to be congruent. So both of your answers are 12 divided by the square root of 2. So when given a hypotenuse, in order to find the legs, divide by the square root of 2. Okay, so let's do this one. Notice that it gives us the hypotenuse. Okay, and the hypotenuse is always labeled with x times the square root of 2. The value of the legs are always x. Because our given, the number 6 right here, the given to this problem, is on the same segment as the hypotenuse, that means that x times the square root of 2 equals 6. And then in order to find the leg lengths, I'm just going to divide by the square root of 2. Therefore, x, which is our leg lengths, equals 6 divided by the square root of 2. Okay, so it's never going to change. If we're given a leg and we want to find hypotenuse, we're going to multiply by the square root of 2. If we're given a hypotenuse and we want to find a leg, we're going to divide by the square root of 2. All right. I hope this helps, and you will have an assignment posted as well